So, guys, I want to talk about Harley Cameron, and I do want to mention that I really feel that she's really become a lost cause in AEW. And what I mean by that is that earlier this year, I really loved that promo that she did where she was like doing, like, she did like the CEO with her puppet, and then she automatically goes into a very serious emotional state, like talking about, like she really wants to prove herself and she wants to be taken seriously. Like, ultimately, that promo was probably one of the best promos that were cut this year because it really showed somebody who is trying to find themselves and just say, hey, you know what? Part of who I am is somebody who wants to be a champion, who wants to be taken seriously, who wants to represent, her home country. And I think over the last couple of months, she's kind of almost turned into this ditzy, in love with her own comedy, and just hamming it up person, really. Like, as I said, it's a very 48-hour film project where if you ever seen a 48-hour film project film, like, a lot of them are usually just, silly comedies or people in love with their comedy. Like, they're trying to, like, it's almost like, they want to get people laughing with them when people are just, giving them, no applause or no, like, reaction, really. And I kind of think that's really, really sad because, she has a lot of potential. And I think one issue with the women's division is that there's not a lot of serious wrestlers in the AEW women's division. Like, you have Toni Storm, who has comedy in it. With Mercedes Moné, she's kind of like a snob, but it's also kind of a little. It's almost like the Conway Twitty gag, like her, like when coming out with her titles. It does feel like, it does feel a little like, silly or a little over the top. And then you have Alex Windsor, who's trying to, almost like, be Toni Storm's best friend in a way, really, So you don't really have that woman in that locker room that is somebody who's really, like, serious or has like another dimension than just either they're there to be there, they're there to do good moves, or that serious underdog, like, I want to prove myself. Like I said, Billy Starks could be like that. If you make her Billy Starks versus Athena, there could be a feud within, that serious, that lost student who's trying to be serious, make their way in this world of wrestling, and a person like Athena just being like, you know what, you're lost without me as a teacher, and you damn sure are not going to leave me. Like, like an abusive, like, teacher type of role, really. And then also you have Harley Cameron, who is almost very similar in that way, where she is kind of like that person that's almost like, hey, you know what, I just, I'm trying to find my way, really, in AEW, and I'm trying to be serious, and I'm actually trying to be, somebody bigger and stuff like that. And I think that that's a good contrast between Mercedes Moné, who's kind of really privileged. She's almost like, my shit don't stink at the top of the mountaintop. And then you have, like, the underdog who's trying to, like, climb that mountain, really, So there's a good dynamic in it. But I do think it's unfortunate that, there's a good story. Imagine if they had her win in Australia with that, or imagine if they build that up to the Grand Slam show in Australia next year, or imagine if they built that as a match for AEW All in Texas, really. So it kind of goes down to, like, what I'm trying to say, really, with Harley Cameron. There's a lot more stories that you can tell, really, and I think that almost with AEW, because there's really no direction with a lot of these wrestlers. There is such a thing as possibly just, there's no direction with the wrestlers, but I really just think that there's really no sense of just editing stories or being like, hey, there are certain characters and there's certain people that can actually just, kind of fit, that can really just kind of fit and everything like that, and try to make them, fit into certain roles and do certain things, or make them a little different, or be like, okay, everybody's too much the same, really. Like, we need to go different directions with people. I think that's good, really. But I do think that, as I said, I think one big failure of women's division is that there are some wrestlers like Harley Cameron where there are missed opportunities. And I think the big missed opportunity is that she can be taken really seriously. But I think that, just like with Max Caster, I think that there's a sense of losing, of like saying, okay, well, people like that I'm funny, so I'm going to stick with it, when that could be used, like, later on, really, So I just think that she's kind of like a lost cause, and it's really, really sad, because I do think that She has a lot of potential as a wrestler, and I think that if you told serious stories with her, she would actually go very far in her wrestling career. And I just think that this whole entire hamming it up with her comedy or just like chugging with her guitar and just being laughable and funny and goofy, really, it does more harm than help with her. And then there's some serious stories that will never be told because then you can't take her seriously, really. And sometimes you really need the serious stories. I think that with AEW, I think they rely way too much on comedy and action when they can tell more serious stories. I think the story of the underdog with Harley Cameron would be a really great story, and it's unfortunate that they don't do that.